couple of months ago, I had to add a new feature to our application at Wix. And before I started to implement it, I thought about this boilerplate stuff again. And I was looking at this, and I thought, maybe there's a pattern here. Maybe there is something that we can do in order to reduce all this boilerplate and then make everything a little bit more fun and easier. So let's rewind a little bit, first of all. I used to develop with Ruby on Rails. And one of the nice things about Ruby on Rails is that it relies about the concept of convention over configuration and basically making everything dry. This means that you want to try and leave out the decision making from the developer, and basically only if he needs to change something which is outside of the convention, then let him intervene and do whatever he wants, right? So it's a software design paradigm used by frameworks to decrease the number of decisions the developer needs to make without losing the flexibility, and basically just specify the unconventional aspects of your application, right? So an example, like a classic example from Ruby on Rails would be like a user model. This is always used for like the current user who is logged in into your application and using it. It will probably be, not probably, it will surely be in a directory called app, model, user RB. You'll have a user controller to change it for index, getting, setting, and so on. The table in the database will be called users with ID as the main index. You'll have getters, setters, user helper for the view. The index files, the HTML files, are going to be in this same directory structure. And the URL will be users and his ID or many users to get all of them, for example. And if you wanted to, you could customize everything here. But this is not really recommended because you're breaking the convention. You're doing configuration instead of convention. And here we go. So the pros here are pretty clear. It reduces boilerplate very much. It's easy to follow the code once you know this convention. And all the apps are alike. Because once you developed a Rails app in even a completely different company, and then you go to another company and you also develop a Rails app, it's very easy to onboard. So new people who already know Rails will come to your company and they can start working pretty much instantly. And the pro is that if you want to, you can also customize it if needed. And let's look at the cons for a minute. So first of all, it seems like voodoo, right? New people that join the company or your team or whatever, and they see this code, it's like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Where did you define this? Have you defined this? How is this working? And this can be pretty difficult, especially for new developers, not just in Rails specifically, but in general speaking. And the con is also that it's customizable. So if you were to override something and somebody else who knows this convention, and now he's looking for this convention, and it's somewhere hidden from him, it's overwritten, it's confusing, and he doesn't know where to find it and what to do. But even though with these pros and cons, I think that this idea of convention over configuration, it still has its merit, and it's pretty good, and that it can be used in other frameworks as well. So after I remembered my good old days in Rails, I thought maybe I can bring this similar concept into Redux and basically slash all this boilerplate, which is pretty annoying, just 10 files and so many lines just to update one simple toggle, right? So I came up with a thing called Redux-cornell, which is a library which is meant to reduce boilerplate in Redux. And I named it after Chris Cornell. Everybody knows him? Nobody? Just one? 2, 3, 4? OK. Just shy people, right? Okay, so I think Chris is one of the best singers of all time. I really liked his voice and singing and writing. And he's one of the famous architects of the 90s grunge movement. He had a very long career. But one important note is that he struggled with depression, and he ended up actually killing himself about a year ago. And I chose to name this library after him, not only to honor him, but also to try to raise awareness about suicide. So if we look at this number, this huge number, it's the amount of suicides per year worldwide. It's 1 every 42nd, and 16 million attempted suicide just last year. It's a huge number, and there's like a stigma that it's only like specific parts of the world. But as you can see from this map, it's everywhere. It's not just Scandinavia or Russia or America or Africa or whatever. It's pretty much a worldwide issue. So here are some resources that you can get help online. Some are free, some are not. And please, if you're suffering from depression or you know somebody, please refer them to this. And yeah. All right, let's keep going. So the library is meant to reduce the boilerplate on Redux. So basically, you can focus on what's most important. The app, right? We wanted to add a toggle. We didn't want to mess around with so many reducers, selectors, all that stuff, right? So what is it about? It's very tiny. It has 0 dependencies. It's actually written with TypeScript, so it's all typed. It brings the convention over configuration concept into JavaScript. It allows you to build complete apps without reducers and selectors and constants and so on. And it is easy to customize. You can plug it into any other thing or any type of flow you have in your application. And I started using this at Wix, like on a very, very small project a couple of months ago. And it actually went very well, and no bugs so far. And after a while, we started expanding this, and now the dashboard in Wix, it's the second most visited page in Wix, and it's completely using Redux-cornell, so it has 0 reducers and constants and selectors and so on. So you can say that it can take the load of a very heavy page, so you don't have to worry about that. So let's talk about the way that it works. So when you import this library, you provide the main function with an initial state object. And this object is analyzed by the keys and its values. And this automatically generates for you in memory selectors, action creators, and constants. And you have one super reducer which handles all these actions, and you don't have to take care of that. And because it doesn't just generate the code for you that you can paste into your app, it's all in memory, it doesn't bloat up your app at all. So your bundle size doesn't grow, only like the size of the library, which, like I said, it's tiny. So let's look at on our example here. We provide the initial states of users are visible. And we're going to get a selector, which is called get users are visible. And we pass the state to it, and we're going to get the attribute false in this case. And we get an action creator called toggle users are visible. And the super reducer will toggle they are visible from true to false. When we fire this action, it's just going to reverse the value. And again, all this with just when we initiated this function. So I created a small app just to showcase this and demonstrate this. You can find it here and download it and like get the code and see how it works. It's just a sample app, and it fetches the code, like in this case of the show Stranger Things, and it fetches it from like a remote API, like of IMDb, and basically it shows the data, toggles, expands it, everything, and it has created with React Create App, and it has, like I said, no reducers and no selectors and so on. Yeah. So let's take a look, right? So first of all, this is our app, okay? So we can see that we have a list of episodes here, which we fetched from the server. And we can expand the episodes and read about them. And we have a toggle here about the show info and like a place to write our name here and reset it. And this is not something special. It's pretty standard. But the thing that it's cool is that it's very little code. So let's take a look at the code a little bit, okay? So this is my app, and I have here, I'm initiating here my Redux store. Can you see this, by the way, or should I make it bigger? Bigger? Okay? Cool. Okay, so I'm importing the Redux-cornell function, and I'm passing to it the initial state. And you can see here I have episodes and loaded, data, expanded, the show info, visible, false, and the current user. And basically what this does, this function returns an object which I'm destructuring here. And I'm getting the selectors, the actions, and the super reducer. And I'm exporting these selectors and actions because I'm going to use them in my containers, right? When I use React Redux's connect functions, I'm going to use it there. So that's why I'm exporting them from here. And we're going to import them throughout our app. And to my root reducer, I'm just passing the super reducer that we just created and nothing more. And we're going to get the functions and the reducers and the selectors and everything just by simple code analysis here, which sees that, oh, you have episodes and loaded. So you're going to get episodes and loaded just because we wrote it here. And because it sees that the initial value is a Boolean, it's going to toggle between false and true. And for an array, there's going to be concat, because it's adding, and object extend. And you can also do set, which basically you write exactly the value that you want, like we did in the text field a second ago, or just pass on, or just write nullify, and then it will turn it into null. So in our example here, we had this toggle here, for example. So I have my app container, and I imported the selectors and the actions that we just created. And you can see here that I have show info visible. It's the Boolean here. That's my prop type. And here I'm mapping it from the state. So I'm just calling these selectors, get show info visible, and passing the state. That's it. No more select. I don't have a selector file at all. There's not even a directory called like that. Of course, if I did want to create a custom selector, which was, for example, this plus something else, I can create it and import this selector over there and combine it and mix and match in whatever way that I wanted to. And let's, for example, look at a little bit more complex example. For example, how we fetch the data from our server. So we have fetch stranger things. Okay, that's the fetching method. And you can see I imported it from an action because I have a custom action here. I have some special logic I want to plug into Redux-cornell and basically do some changes. So let's open the episodes actions. Okay, I'm importing this API. And basically, I'm using func here because I'm doing some asynchronous call. Only when it's done, I want to actually dispatch this data into my reducer. So I'm grabbing the show info, and once it's done and I have my results, the episodes, I'm firing the actions, and you can see that's the same actions that we have defined in the reducer earlier, and concat episodes data and just passing the episodes to it. And the super reducer will just take care of everything for me and just stick that into my array and just render it on screen. And we can actually, if we fire up here the Redux DevTools. So we have here the concat action, and you can see that it passed to the super reducer episodes data and just passed the data inside. And you can see here all the actions according to what we did: set, extend, toggle, and so on. So now let's say, let's make like a little small code, live coding session. Let's say my product manager, he said, you know what, this title, it's huge. I want to give our customers the option to collapse it, to make it small. Okay, no problem. So let's see how easy we can do it. Let's start the script here. Okay, so first of all, let's go to our super reducer again. And let's say we have a new type of store, right? And we call it, I don't know, layout. And header collapsed. And we'll start by saying that it's false, because we want to start up with our big header, right? Cool. Now let's map this this value into our view, just to see it, first of all. So I'm going to go to our app container, and let's basically map it over here. We're going to call this is header collapsed. Collapsed. So I'm using the same selector object as before, and our store name, like this reducer, was called layout. So it's going to be get layout header collapsed. And we pass the state to it, and it should be ready for us. Let's define the prop type, just to be on the safe side. So is header collapsed, and it's a Boolean, right? And we're going to pass it into the app component. Let's go to our app component and put this value on the screen. So is header collapsed. And this is not our code. This is just React code. I mean, if you did this with TypeScript, you'd just probably throw it like in a type, and you wouldn't have to write even this code. I usually use TypeScript, so it's even shorter. And just put it over here in our render function, right above the header. Okay, let's hope it works. All right, we have it. Okay, now let's see if we can toggle this guy. So again, I don't have to define any more, I don't have to define any more new actions. So let's go again to our container, and let's add the action that we need. So we have toggle, layout, header collapsed. I think you already get the point of what's going to happen. Let's call it, I don't know, toggle header. It's a function. Let's go to our component. All right, and now we're going to add an on-click event to the H1. Actually, I need to import this to destruct this. All right. Got this error here somewhere. Sorry. Let's just change this to span. So it's a little small, and it's not working for us. Let's see why. So we forgot to add it here to the mapping. So toggle header. Oh, sorry. We called it toggle header, and we used toggle layout header collapsed, right? Cool. So that's it. It's working, and now we can just focus again on what we want. We can do the styling, for example. So we had here the header. It was called app header. Let's go to our CSS and maybe add that if it's app header and collapsed, our height will be 0. Let's make also a nice transition. OK. And I'm going to use class names just so I can make the switching of the classes faster. What do we call it? Collapsed. Oops, sorry. OK, let's hope it works. Yay! All right. So as you can see, it was pretty simple, and I hope everyone was able to follow. And I'm sure that if it's in your project, it's easier to follow than just some guy showing random stuff on stage. And basically, we saw about the app, and we saw how you can write much less code. And I was able to focus on my app and work on my CSS and transition and so on without wasting time on boilerplate. And we brought the convention over configuration concept into JavaScript, which I think is pretty cool. And basically, what's next is that I've already got some suggestions from people about stuff that we can add to this. One suggestion was that if it's already written in TypeScript, how about when we do the analysis of the values that we project the types back? So for example, if it was get toggle header, then we return that the type is Boolean, right, or stuff like that. And of course, the future of this also depends on you guys. So please check it out. And if you have ideas, then write to me on whatever medium you want to. I'm on email, Twitter, LinkedIn, GitHub. There's also a pretty thorough and extensive article I wrote on Medium about this that you can read. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Eyal.